Now that moves us on to people who are referred to as stakeholders. Stakeholders are all of the people who are interested in an organisation. So all the people who are interested in an organisation. Stakeholders are very important, as one of the things we've got to try and do is we've got to try and keep these stakeholders happy. That again is something that we'll spend a long time talking about when we get up to paper P3. We've got to keep the stakeholders happy. What are businesses in business to do? What is it that they're trying to achieve? Well, you could say to me, you're trying to make profits. Well, yes, you are. But you've also got customers. You've also got employees. You need to give your employees a pay rise. You need to perhaps think about what products your customers want. Maybe they want more and they don't want to pay more. In other words, there are various things that we need to think about, and it all depends who we are referring to. And by that, all I mean is there are lots of people who actually are affected by our business. Stakeholders, is anybody who has got an interest in what we do, anybody who is affected by our business. So, internal stakeholders are staff and managers. They want things from our business. Pay, interesting work, bonuses, some of those cost the company money. Hopefully you notice with the staff, that comes back to what we were talking about with motivation. We want interesting work. With the managers, bonus comes back to motivation. So the idea is they want something from our organisation. We have to deliver it to them, or they will all leave, and then we won't have a company. Connected stakeholders are things like suppliers, customers, banks, etc. They also want something from our business. For example, we have to make sure that we pay our suppliers on time, and that we pay the bank on time if we've borrowed some money. If we are unable to do those, then obviously we will get taken, potentially we'll be bankrupt. So the idea is we need to keep those people happy as well. It's not just about making profits, it's about cash flow, which is something you look at in F2 and in F3. One of the most important groups that we have to keep happy is our shareholders, because obviously our shareholders are actually the owners of the company. So we need to do things that they agree with. Now, if we do our job properly, there will be capital growth, the price of the shares, the value of the shares will go up, and there'll be dividends. So we have to think about what they want. The big trouble is we've got all these different stakeholders, and we're trying to juggle what they all want. Because the problem is going to be, we'll see in a second, they don't all want the same thing. Finally, external stakeholders. We've got the government who want to make sure we don't break the law. Got the local community who are interested perhaps in jobs. We've got pressure groups, people who perhaps want us to pay our workers higher salaries, or to stop using workers in a particular country, or to stop polluting the environment, people who try and stop us doing something. And finally, if there's a regulator, there'll be various rules that we have to follow. Now, they're all wanting something from our organisation, and we have to think about how we are going to deliver it to them. So, examples. Staff versus shareholders. Every time you give your staff a pay rise, that's less money to go to the shareholders. Customers versus shareholders. Every time that you improve the quality of a product, then that's more money that's being spent, that's less profits, obviously, unless you can put the prices up as well. So the trouble is that we're trying to balance all these things, and it's difficult to do. That is incredibly important, again, when we come to P3. There's an awful lot of stuff in this second half of the course, basically from about chapter 9 onwards, that comes back again in P3 in a big way. This is very important. We have to work out who we're going to try and keep happy. Because later on, when we talk about P3, we'll have to talk about how we're going to keep them happy. We can't do that if we don't know who they are. So, stakeholder conflict. Various ways that you can try and deal with the fact that they all want different things. Sequential attention. That simply means that this year we focus on one group. So this year we're going to give our employees a pay rise. So we keep them happy. But one of the things we say to the employees is you get a big pay rise this year, but next year you don't. Because next year, what we will do is we'll focus on reducing prices to our customers. So each group, in effect, gets what they want, but maybe once every 3 or 4 years. They don't get what they want all the time. So we say to them, you want a good deal this year, but next year you sort of have to accept less. So sequential attention. Satisficing is giving people what they need, not what they want. People want more than we can deliver. So satisficing them means giving them just enough. You want a 5% pay rise, but you actually need a 2% one because of inflation. Right, you'll get a 2%, you get a 2% rise, you don't get the rest. That means we can give everybody what they need. If I give some groups what they want, other groups go without. So the idea is everybody gets what they actually need, nobody gets more than that. Satisficing works short term. After a while, people will get fed up with it. Prioritisation. It might mean that we look at who are the key stakeholders. And they always come first when we're thinking about things. Our key stakeholders are our shareholders. So we always think about them first. Everybody else goes next. So it means that our employees might not get a pay rise. Maybe they will, but we have to maintain our dividend. We have to maintain what we're giving to our shareholders. So the shareholders come first, everybody else comes next. And finally, side payments. In effect, what we're saying there is we say to the employees, we can't give you a pay rise. What we will do is instead we will improve your working hours. So we won't give you a pay rise, but we'll give you won't have to work as long. So you do a 40-hour week. Next year, no pay rise, but you only do a 39-hour week. So in other words, I'm compromising. Instead of giving you what you want, I'll give you something else. So these are all ways that you might decide to manage things. Now, if any of you have got families, which I'm sure all of you have, that's in effect what you do. Members of your family, particularly if you've got children, they don't all want the same thing. So sometimes one of your children gets what they want and the other one has to put up with it. Sometimes they both get what they need and neither of them gets what they actually want. Sometimes there will be somebody, perhaps if somebody's ill for a week or two, they come first all the time. And side payments, in effect, you bribe them. So you say, Mum, you're not getting this, but I'll give you something else instead. So any of you with children will recognise that. The final thing that we've got in this particular section starts talking about what's called the informal organisation. Now, everything we've seen so far, the structure, is all to do with what's called the formal organisation. The formal organisation, it's called that because you can write it down on a bit of paper. You can say, here is David, here is David's manager, here is that person's manager, here's another department. Everything can be written down on a bit of paper. The informal organisation is what you can't write down on a piece of paper. It's the things that also go on inside an organisation. It's the way that things are done. So it's not what jobs people do, it's the way that they do them. Now, informal organisations are very, very important, particularly when we start talking about change. And that, again, is something that we look at in a lot of detail in P3. We're going to talk about culture in the next chapter. So the formal organisation, the structure of an organisation, is who does what job. And the key thing behind structure, every job gets done once. If the job gets missed out entirely, then you may have a problem. If the job gets done twice, then you're wasting money. So everything gets done once. It's also about communicating. How do I know that the job has been done? Who tells me? Who do I tell to do the job? And how do I know that it's been done? So structure is all to do with who's doing the task and who tells them to do it, how do they find out it's been done. So it's all written down. I can tell you what to do, you report to me. Do you remember all the stuff we're doing about authority, power? It's all to do with this stuff again. So that's the formal organisation. In the next chapter, we'll talk about culture, which is the informal organisation.